Look
Technology.
How are you, my friend? Very corporate. That's very impressive. I wasn't expecting you to be all kitted up.
Well, make the effort.
See, that's old habits, that is. That's classic English attention to detail, that is.
Yeah, double cuffs, shirt, tie. I can't help it. I mean, we're not all going to walk around with Boris Johnson haircuts and pink hats on.
Oh, he's gone early. He's gone early. Well, I'll be joined. Oh, hang on. My erstwhile colleague has just aroused himself from bed, so let me just admit him. And he will be joining us shortly. Oh, we're down here. You keep looking up there. Have you got?
I've just moved screens, so I've just moved them all around.
You're like me, are you? You have like 6 or 7 cameras on you at all times.
Yeah, but mine are for different reasons.
Fine, okay. Well, we're gonna get onto that anyway.
He hasn't got a documentary crew that is following him around called Predators in the Wild.
No, that doesn't have a K in it, so it doesn't work with Kerfuffle, actually. So it would be Captives with a K or something like that. Well done, David. You've woke yourself at last.
Well, it's pretty late for me here in Australia, so it takes...
Yeah, we've got to pay homage. So that for those wonderful listeners, watchers, whatever else we may have on the 1 in a million chance this actually streams to Facebook. They should be confused by your fantastic, obviously, English accent, Mr. Trimble, should they? Because you are, in fact, in Australia as we speak.
I am. I can't flip the screen upside down, but I can assure them that I'm definitely in Adelaide. My nomadic lifestyle from the north of England to the south of England to Sydney has taken me to Adelaide.
Well, let's do the hard questions. Let's do the hard questions, James. Which is the more cultured out of those? North, South, Australia.
Oh well, look. I think everybody's got the benefits. I can't answer that because if this is recorded for legal purposes, I might be absolutely stuffed.
It's not that. It's if you're from Yorkshire, they'll batter you.
Well, look, there's a lot of culture in Yorkshire, but that's why I lived in London for 20
mainly
years.
chlamydia.
Where do you go with the jokes? You go Lancashire.
You don't get this on the estate agency podcast or with Mr. Panos or with Josh.
You don't get many things. What's that in the background? Branston keeps appearing. Sorry.
There's a huge setup to this, but it keeps thinking I've got a green screen. So don't ignore that. That's fading. It's a can of Branston if I do that.
Because for a moment I thought you had a running machine behind you, and I thought that can't be your place.
That really is. That's just ignore that. That's completely. Oh yeah, it's actually showing the Branston on the screen. That's impressive. As you know,
has it ever been used?
Like so many of my things, as a tech guru, of course, I have no idea how any of this works. But yeah, that your.
I mean, really, where do you go with that? Is it do as I say, not as I do? I think it's the way that my dad used to say, because Dad was a teacher.
Right.
That's always where it started. Do as I say, not as I do.
Right, so some hard questions. You and I don't know each other, James. So I'm going to ask Simon to formally introduce you to all our listeners that don't know who you are. Simon, give the guest a name.
Okay, so it's James Trimble, the fantastic James Trimble. Mr. Trimble, actually. It's a bit like Mr. Tumble, isn't it? Mr. Trimble. No. And
same shape.
We knew each other from your days at Winkworth, obviously the well-known and prominent London franchise group. You actually did break out of London, didn't you, as well? But I think didn't you famously have more offices with a single brand in London than any other name?
That was certainly the tagline. I mean, going back to it was about 60 offices inside the capital. So
yeah.
Neck and neck with KFH and Foxtons for a good period of time. It was always around about the sort of 50 to 60 mark.
Yeah.
But the old sort of time that we were about 60 offices inside the M25.
Cool. And then traitorously, you decided to go to the Southern Hemisphere, and you are now working for the as franchise. What's your actual full title? I should know this, but.
So my title here is General Manager, so I'm in charge of South Australia, and I oversee SA and also Northern Territory for Rain and Horn Group.
Okay.
Again, similar sort of way to Winkworth, a family-run, family values, franchise business. A lot of comparables between the two.
So let's talk about your move to Australia, though. Is it something you've been planning for a while? Did you wake up one morning and go, I'm out. Sorry.
No,
I hope you've...
No. Like most, and Simon, you're an expert in the pubs of London and Manchester and everywhere else. Going back to 2003, 2004, I accidentally went to a pub and I accidentally met an Australian lady.
It happens.
And accidentally, 7 years later, married her, or 6 years later, married her. And she tracked you, and like they always change you. We want to take you back to Australia now, and she's got you there ensconced, hasn't she? Well, she intended to go to London for a year. Yeah, that was the deal. And 14 years later, mortgage, Labrador, 2 kids, third one on the way. We decided that because my son was coming up to school age, my eldest, at the time, it was, what do we want to do? Do we want to school him? Where do we want to do? All that sort of conversation that started. Yep. And it was always a running joke with Dominic Agace, the CEO of Winkworth at the time, which was, you're going on holiday to Australia. You will come back this time. Yep, you come back this time. So there was a running joke or sort of elephant in the room. And eventually that day when the did present with the letter, it was kind of, really?
He knew it was coming.
Oh, damn.
And was it always a permanent move? I'm always amazed by how many people say, we're going to just go to Australia for 2 to 3 years or something. And of course, 2 to 3 years always turns into 5, 10 and a permanent stay.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I've got the ability. I think what's important in any business or anything is to be able to switch off. And I cycle to switch off. That's my sort of go-to stupidity. And London life, it was to cycle to Surrey and disappear at Box Hill, which is something, a million cyclists do every year. And in October till around about March, I used to have to put my bike away and not be able to go outside. So for half the year, it was inside life. And here, apart from this week, it's coming into winter. We'll be outside, we'll be in shorts, we'll be in T-shirt. That lifestyle, the ability to go to the beach in half an hour, it's just everything that we wanted to give for the kids, and that lifestyle that my wife's family, when they moved from Northern Ireland in the 70s, the same way, it just ticks so many boxes.
And is that what Brits on the whole expats sort of see the value in Australian life is very much not necessarily the time you spend in work, but it's the quality of life that you have outside of work. It's
that, and I think the language helps as well. It's not that hard to learn.
Talking of
a few swear words and what have you like that, I'm sure.
They're quite creative there.
Well, I saw your chat with Hutch the other day, and I thought, well, he's probably the best one to teach you a few bits and pieces on that front rather than me.
To be honest, I blushed a few times. He's brash even for an Aussie, which is quite a claim.
Yeah, he's a good lad.
Okay,
he's a good lad. So, but in terms of that, David, what you ask is, what's it like? What's the life?
Yeah,
I'm 5 minutes from home. Yeah. Halfway between home is the kids' school and childcare. So I can do drop off in the morning. My commute is 5 minutes each way. That works really, really well. Certainly where I am in Adelaide. I'm directly opposite the parkland. So right opposite my office here, there's acres and acres and acres of parklands. I can go out. You go out and see runners. You see cyclists.
Yeah, and also, hang on, spiderbacks, snakes, killer dingoes.
Do you know what? My wife said that yesterday. I said to her after talking to Hutch, I said, right, do you know what? I really like these guys. I think it's the place to go. And she said, spiders, snakes.
Yeah,
and Paul Hogan.
Is he still around?
Oh, he's still around.
The ATO tried to deal with him, don't worry. I've seen one snake in 4 years.
Oh, that's disappointing.
It was a brown snake. It was a brown snake. It was pretty deadly.
Okay.
But we rode past it and the kids went, there's a snake. And that was it.
Whaley hasn't seen his snake for years, have you, Whaley?
These early morning shows are really testing you, aren't they?
You know what? I'm scraping the bottle about. I'm on empty, guys. I don't mind telling you. It's been a very rough
Is this what lockdown's done to you guys?
This is what lockdown has done.
You know, we were going to... This series is called Lockdown Lowdown with you Australians, or you Australians, but we were also going to call it Lockdown and Loco, because that's frankly where we're all at now.
So I'm gonna...
Guys, you couldn't be... I mean, look, we've dodged a real bullet here, and the fact that we're so removed from Europe, from, mum and dad are still in Yorkshire, sister lives in St Albans, family and friends are all dotted all over around the world. We've gone 8 days in a row in South Australia. To give everybody a context of how big South Australia is, South Australia is about 4 times the size of Great Britain, with 2.5% of the population. All right? So social distancing, physical distancing is easy.
Yeah.
Traffic jam outside is 5 cars.
Right.
Easy to do that.
Well, whilst we're looking at that, James, tell us what your experience is. Of course, these guys spoke about the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, and I scoffed because it was barely a blip for them. They're obviously hitting a bit of a tighter market there. You know the market's back in England. What would you compare it to, the market they've got now?
One of the things, and I've used this phrase a few times, is the property market is the barometer of the economy. It's the one thing that every man or woman on the street gets. They understand. Healthy property market, healthy economy. Bad property market, bad economy. So it's something tangible and something real. And, without getting into political baiting of, yeah, they're great, no, they're bad, etc., the job keeper that they put into place has saved a lot of bacon. So the job keeper was put into place. I know you've got the furloughs, which is basically, here, have some money, don't come to work.
Yeah.
The way that they've done it over here is, here, I'm going to give your business some money and you're going to keep your employees working. So people have had the confidence to go to work or work from home.
Yeah.
So the tech revolution's arrived, so people are confident. The work from home revolution started and probably brought everything that was coming in the next 10 years into a matter of 3 weeks. But the different states have got different problems in different ways. The regulations nationally are 1.5 metres apart from each other, and you've got to be 4 square metres in a meeting room. Apart from that, in South Australia, it never got down to below no more than 10 people together.
Yeah.
In the rest of the country, it got down to 2 people, tops. So all the real estate jobs and rules and regulations about how do you do a viewing or an inspection all had to change. So when I was frontline agent, I was frontline agent, to give you a bit of background, originally at Barnard Marcus, then I went to Kinley, and then a small stint at Chesterton before moving behind the scenes at Winkworth. So where you would normally, and David, you do the same, is you take a person, they look at 5 houses, which one do you want to buy, and we take you and you do a deal. Yeah. Here it's between 10 and 12, we'll be at this house, or 10 and 10:30, depending on demand at the time. Come down, have a look, and it's a bit of a free-for-all. We'll let so many people in the house. If you want it, come back and we'll do a private inspection. That all stopped because not everybody's data was grabbed. And for our Australian viewers, data, but I'll stick with data because I always will, I'm sorry. But for that element, not all the data was grabbed, so you couldn't trace people because people were just randomly walking in and out. So you wouldn't have agents grab all the details. Whereas, how do you track somebody randomly if they come into contact with somebody else?
Yeah.
So what that is, private inspections only, and auctions can't be in the garden, in an in-room. It has to be a virtual. So Zoom, FaceTime, Gavel, Auction Now, all of these brilliant tech firms in terms of things that were coming and trickling into the system slowly have really brought it in overnight.
That's a really dynamic, isn't it, James? Is that, stuff, as you said, they were trends, but now they're waves, and they're not going to just be abandoned after this comes back, are they? I mean, there's no doubt about it.
I think the new normal isn't going back to the shops and seeing toilet paper and thinking everything's great and normal again. Let's go back to how we were. Exactly. Yeah. But that element of
the dream for me. I went to the shops, I saw toilet paper, and I did actually say, This is the green shoots of recovery.
The boys bounce.
Well,
yeah.
In all fairness, I say this, but I did take an Instagram story picture of the toilet roll aisle in Woolworths today. So, with little things, but it is an element of positivity.
And for our listeners, your Instagram handle
is like Tesco's or Sainsbury's. We still have Jamie Oliver, so we don't.
You've got Woolworths, haven't you? That's actually. Does it have all the? Does it have the sweet counters, the self-service sweet?
No. I'll let you Google it. But the whole story about it is they realised when they set Woolworths up that the Americans hadn't trademarked it in Australia, so they went, "That's a great name. Let's steal it."
Oh, is that right? Oh, I saw it actually franchised, and no, it wasn't that.
Not part of the.
No, it's just basically someone left the back door open on the trademark and just wanted to register that.
James, let's try and drill down because talking to Hutch was interesting, but I don't think we managed to get down to sort of the nitty gritty. But maybe we could use because you've got a perfect barometer of the difference between the UK and Australia in terms of even in peacetime. Let's say, forget about Corona, but in normal times, the buying process in Australia is very different to the buying process here in the UK. A skill set that we were talking to Milton Janusz a couple of months ago, and he said that when he came from Australia, he very quickly had to learn that there's a whole section of our job that we do here in the UK as estate agents that just doesn't exist in Australia, and that is sales progression, because in Australia you've got this sort of concept of their sales ready. You've done an inspection. They've had the opportunity to look around. The auction, as you call it, it happens on the day outside, and then that's it. You found a buyer. And over here, if I agree a sale with you today, even at the best of times, you and I would be lucky if we were shaking hands and handing over keys in maybe 3 or 4 months' time. So
the UK, exactly as you described, 24. I think the national statistic in the UK was always around about 24 to 33% would fall through before exchange, depending on sort of the roller coaster of what was happening in the market. Home information packs, if we go back to that word 12 years ago, and but the point about it was the principle and everything was right at the wrong time, I think, because the idea behind it was that here's a pack of information that means that you can exchange on this property and settle in 14 days.
Yeah.
And don't like it, here's everything you need in this pack right now, bang.
Yeah.
Do the deal, sign the contract, you're in, no stress, and then David can go on and sell another one and another one and another one. He's not spending 12 weeks going, do you think I'll get paid? Because you work for 12 weeks pro rata on a quarter of your stock, and no reward, and the benefit you get when it falls through is you go, well, I've got to sell it again. At least it's like getting another listing or another property to sell. The difference, that home information pack idea, now regardless of all the politics and the 2004 Housing Act as it was, that brought that all in, and the GFC hit and they pulled it back, that's what we've got here is if you go to market with a house, so David, let's say it doesn't matter if it's going to auction or for private treaty, that house to go live has to have a certain number of things ready for it, to basically, you can rock up to a house, you can go, I love it, give me the contract, sign on the dotted line, here's my sort of a bank account, send me a deposit, right, subject to the cooling off period of 14 days, it's yours. Or you can waive that in certain circumstances. When the hammer falls, there is no cooling off period. You buy it, you bought it.
Okay.
Unless there's obviously extreme reasons behind what happened. But it's that.
And how does just for those of us that don't know, the hammer falls, you've bought it. So here in the UK, in an auction scenario, hammer falls, you've exchanged contracts, you've handed over a 10% deposit.
Same sort of principle.
And you've got to complete 28 days later. Is it the same with you guys, or?
Similar situation. So what would happen is that a few days before the contract, you're purchasing the contract basically. Yeah. You're not purchasing the house is formally. So the contract is displayed and the standard terms and conditions as defined by the vendor in the contract, to buy this house, we want 10% deposit, we want 28 days, we want 36 days, we want whatever. That's cool. If you go in and say, well, actually, guys, I haven't got 10%, I've only got 9%, and actually I need 6 weeks. If you become a registered bidder, you just have to agree that, and if the other side are happy to that, then you can enter into the auction.
Okay. And in terms
so the same principle applies in that sort of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, say completion period, settlement period, as they would call it.
So legal due I can't say this.
Easy to say. Do you want another coffee?
Due diligence. DD. So what form does the DD take? So here, obviously, solicitors we're still doing searches, we're still doing surveys. Those surveyors, if they find something, they may want a further building survey done. How does it work with you guys?
In a roundabout way, the other way around.
Okay.
You as the vendor prepare the property for sale in the majority of cases, not in the perfect sense. Now, what you've got to also appreciate, which is a little bit different, is that South Australia, WA, Northern Territory, Queensland, Victoria, Tasmania, you can't forget, and ACT, they've all got different rules and regulations. So it's a bit like the People's Republic of Yorkshire having a set of rules and Lancashire having another set, and the South being different because they're South.
Yeah.
It's 50, a lot of the stuff is the same, but the way the deposits, the way that the transactions, the way that who produces the forms, who signs the form, it does depend state to state. So one of the things to actually point out about who prepares the sale, it's actually worth going back 3 or 4 steps before that. So you can't just turn up in Australia and say, I want to be a real estate agent, I want to start this afternoon. It's licensed.
Yeah.
And
that again is that's states again, isn't it?
So it's state by state.
What does it take to be licensed?
What does it take to be licensed? About $3,000 and a lot of exams.
And do you need to be, those exams, are they fairly, I mean, because I took some exams here that were set by, I think,
it's not, look, I did the NAEA exam in about 2000.
And those were easy. Okay.
It's tick box A, B, C, or D with the AB. It's not that. It's not that at all. I came over in 2016. I sat down in a training room with Lucas Cannon in Think Real Estate. Basically did the basic level to get in to be able to understand what's going on. A lot of the laws, the rules, the regs, Australian law is based on UK law. That's how it's been built. So a lot of the law of precedent is exactly the same. Understanding your liabilities, understanding your rules, your regulations, it's not difficult, but it's not as easy as to say that the colour by numbers getting into the NAA exam that I found when I did mine. I hopefully think it might have tightened up since then.
Well, they're going to be bringing in ROPA here, which is going to be proper regulations for agents. So effectively, it will become licensed. Nobody knows.
One thing that gives that license is, let's say, every listing is attributed to an individual and a business. So your license number is on every listing.
Right.
So if Simon comes to me and says, I have sold 50 properties, you can actually correlate that to his license, his 50 sales. Okay. So when you go into CoreLogic, you can see what that property was and who it was listed with over the previous decade. And
just on that, James, so people that don't know it, CoreLogic is like a private version of the land registry with a load of other data services as well?
It's a massive bank of information. So it's an American firm, but it's if you look at the back end of, say, Rightmove with the market trends, it's like that, but that's only 1% of what this can do. So you can work out sales, you can work out who's been on the market with, how much it was leased for, how much it was rented out for, what the history of it is, what the planning permissions were, all of that land title, and it scrapes off a million different places.
The way it was pointed out to me, I can't remember who it was, whether it was Josh or Tom was saying, is if you were talking about setting up a new agency over there, it would be one of the first things that you would have in your kit bag to sign up for, basically, other than realestate.com.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things is realestate.com is there like Rightmove. It's the sort of the red monster versus the green monster over here. That's all right when you've got it, you can sell it. But what do you do to get the business in the first place? So the RP, it's CoreLogic, its brand name's RP Data as it's known over here. And that's the element to how do I get a list of everybody that's sold in a suburb in a particular area. Yeah. So let's say you were trying to sell in, I don't know, Salford. The average properties transacting every 8 years. So what you would do is you go through everybody that bought in 2008, 2009, 2010, and you produce a call list.
Yeah.
Where do you get that information? Now, it's not purely perfect, but it's certainly a good place to start producing lists.
They still have like telephone preference service opt-outs, don't they, and things like that?
the big red do not call, and there's a lot of,
I remember,
call.
you'll know it well, James, that agent box that actually my old company Repit bought just before I left. They had a really nice bit of integration with RP data that I haven't seen any of the other CRMs over here do, which obviously enables you through their CRM system to have prospecting tools into that RP data and to be, really proactive.
So we went across to Vault in October, November last year. To go back to the old sort of CRM systems, Vault was the original guys that built my desktop.
Okay.
Years ago, before they sold it off, and then they went and built Vault, and funnily enough, in a roundabout way, they just bought my desktop back to move into Vault. Okay. An evolutionary process. But as part of that, they've got that synced into CoreLogic, so we can pull up property details, square meterage, and you can look at a property, you can pull up the information about the property. So we've got it synced into there. But to come back to the differences, that license is linked to you, and you can then trace that person. So the ability to then take a house to market, the due diligence, the liability, which I think the biggest question when our home information packs was launched was, where's the liability? If I produce the survey for you to purchase and it's your mortgage, who's at fault here? And that was always the funny stuff that went with the hips, wasn't quite right. Yeah. Whereas if I give you a full pack of information, you can buy this house, and you can either buy it a private treaty and sign a contract, or you can let the hammer fall. Great. But that means that sales progression doesn't exist, because your sales progression is essentially, David, would you like 4 weeks or 6 weeks? 6 weeks. Great. Sign here.
Okay, that sounds like a dream.
That's like a dream, doesn't it? Unfortunately, you can't fly here just yet because the planes are down, but see you in a few weeks.
But in terms of, you see, one of the things that always frustrates us from a UK agent's perspective is the fact that we are probably one of the only elements of the industry that are working at risk. So the solicitors are getting paid, the suppliers are getting paid, everybody's getting paid except for an agent is working on the never never. So
sorry?
You weren't talking about a purple person, were you?
PropTech payers, suppliers are getting paid, aren't they? That's just because.
Yeah, no. So I think if you want to look at an agent's life here and an overhead, you've got your rent, your rates, your staff. I'm talking in good times now, when we all had staff and rent and rates. But rent, rates, staff, and then you've got your marketing costs, which are going to be Rightmove, whatever it's costing you to keep that place going.
That's probably worth coming back to in a moment, actually.
We're going to. So, but I think, so obviously, one of the pitfalls is that I can go out and see 20 people. All 20 of them can say that they're going to list with me, and that's great. All 20 of them can put it on the market. I can bring them 10 buyers. They don't need to sell it. They can refuse all the offers, some of the offers. They can waste my time. They can waste the buyer's time. It may come to nothing. They can then move on to somebody else. Agents these days, for the most part, are not locking people into contracts, so they can come and go as they wish. And what this has given rise to is, I suppose, a vendor attitude of, well, you know what, we'll get the agents out. They can do all the work. We can decide later if we sell. So in Australia, the mindset for a seller is that we are committed to sell this. Here you go. Yeah. So that makes a big difference.
So you look at the marketing costs. You look at, if I go back to my Winkworth days in London, we know that a standard office was 20 grand a month just to stand still. When you take rent rates, electricity, some of the big shops in London, you would be on 60 to 100 grand rent a year.
Yeah.
Plus your 44 pence in the pound disbursements. Then everything else on top. The marketing is a massive difference that we have got in here versus old life. I know there's the big thing about Rightmove and Zoopla and what have you like that. It was about 1,000 to 1,200 a month per office without the inside leg measurement and the gubbins and the dancing fairy lights and what have you that they wanted. But you could put all your listings on there. Now, the difference here is depending on the suburb and depending on the demand of the suburb and depending on the demand of the clicks related to that area, you come and list a property in the lower North Shore in Sydney, and to list on realestate.com.au, you're in for $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 per listing.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So you go out and you take 10 on, you might be in for 14 grand. So vendor paid advertising is what is the difference between A, the cash flow, and B, the stability of a business that eliminates the, I'll just put it on and I'll just try it and we'll see how we go.
So they are actually committing upfront to cost, and they realise, and so if I were to ask you, obviously, from my point of view, like you say, the airports are shut. I can't race over there right now, but it sounds like this is the way forward. And I know a lot of my colleagues here have gone to ARIC and they've come back with certain ideas. So one of the guys that is a regular visitor there, you probably know him, Luke Sinclair, has a rival podcast that is lesser known in the UK, virtually unknown in Australia, I would gather. But Luke's
Never heard of it.
Luke's a very nice guy, and we're part of a similar group, and they share ideas. And one of the ideas is to try and get UK vendors as much as possible to be what they call sale ready. And so the cheap UK version of that would be to get them to engage a solicitor from day one, to get them to sign, to fill out the TR1 forms, and to get them to complete all the fixtures and fittings lists. Now, yes, that speeds things up, but not let's face it, not massively.
It starts from the top. It starts from, and this is the problem with anything, whether you're selling cars, you're selling products, you're selling treadmills to people that are gullible enough to buy them, that if it's an easy sell and it's just like, hey, I can get your house on the market, I've listed it, you haven't, sign here. Oh, I've done enough to list the business, they've done the list the business. The problem is that the standard needs to raise, everybody needs to raise. So that bar needs to continue to raise. So if you're just doing enough to win the listing, you're not priming and prepping your agents. All you're doing is kicking the problem down the road. You're kicking the can down the road, because all you're doing is you're making it worse for yourself when you go, David, it's really great news. That lovely couple that I showed you, I've got 300,000 for you, exactly what you wanted. Have you requested your deeds yet? Oh, my wife was going to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas we can go here. Do you know that you wanted 300,000? Well, actually, what I've got right now here is a signed contract with 300 grand. Do you want to countersign it? Right, that's a done deal. Bang, gone.
And do they have the ability to say no? Do they say, no, we don't want to countersign that? And what happens in those cases? Do they pay you anything at that stage, or?
No, your job is there to negotiate, although you're a sales agent. Your job is there to go 310, 305, backwards and forwards.
Okay, but at what stage let's say you get 315 on that house, and you're convinced it's a great offer, but Simon and I don't want to sell.
Isn't that, James, isn't that when it caught in the auction, doesn't it go, they say it goes back inside and you negotiate?
Depends. If you look at private treaty, if you look at private treaty, for example, and there's a slight different variation state to state in terms of the exact laws. So I don't want to say this is this one, this is not that one. I don't want to be vague. But ultimately, if I come to you and say, hey, look, do you think the guys would take 300? You can turn around and go, well, I'll tell you what, let's put it down on an offer form. If they take it, you've got it.
Yeah.
James.
And if they go no, then you can go back. On an auction, let's say the reserve's at 300 and you're at 295, you might go inside and go, look, this is the best offer you want. It's going to cost you 5,000 to remarket it. Just take, so you'll come back and say, the house on the market.
And no pressure, but how good an auctioneer is Tom Panos?
I think if you look at auctioneers and you look at all of them, they're all different styles. He is loud and proud, and as a result, he's very much in demand. You've got to be loud and proud to be an auctioneer. You can't be a little quiet person in the corner.
It genuinely is street theatre, isn't it, though, James? I mean, the one thing I always do is on a Sunday, go and see them all. And as you said, they really do own it and have their own styles. And because of that, they get, they do become massively in demand, don't they?
It's a theatrical situation. It's a performance, and that can be a 5-minute, do you want it, do you want it, do you want it? And what you need to do is coax 2 people.
Yeah.
Any more than, well, I'd be loads, but all you need is 2 people to fall in love with that house. So that's where the agent's marketing is important. So when you stand out on the front on day one, it's, look, Mr. Client, I know that you've not got a lot of money, but what we need to do is maximize the marketing for your house. We need to have the best signboard. We're not restricted to the little teeny weeny signboards that the UK have got, which is about the size of my laptop screen. It's not uncommon to see a 6 before or an 8 before outside the front of a house. If you go to certain places, they're bigger than the house.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that lead up into the auction room, traditionally it was outside on the front steps. I went to an auction the week before the shutdown happened in South Australia for auctions. We had 40 people standing out on the front garden.
Yeah.
Now, we have the neighbours coming out. So not only are you on performance on show for that, you're also performing for the 20% of the people in the crowd that have got a potential sale.
The vendors, yeah.
So it becomes prospecting.
So when you get your license, does that automatically cover you to be an auctioneer? Is that a separate skill set?
2 separate licenses, 2 separate qualifications.
And can you have both?
Yeah, you can have both. You can absolutely have both.
Have you got both, incidentally? Are you tempted to be an auctioneer?
No, not an auctioneer.
James, you're just talking about the auctioneering there and that state difference. Is it my understanding that in Sydney, so what's that, New South Wales, you have to, at those auctions, even if they're a house, you have to be a pre-registered bidder. But that's not true in Melbourne and Victoria. So how do you start? There's many reasons why, the Brits think that style couldn't work over here of auctioneering. The most ridiculous one is, of course, we don't have the weather for it. And one of the Aussies pointed out to me, it does rain here occasionally and you go inside. But the second reason, and I think this is more valid, is how do you stop dickheads from bidding? You said you've got 40, you've got 40 there. I mean, I know British scallies and they would like nothing more than turning up and bidding left, right and centre. Does that ever happen?
Yeah, interesting. Where is the qualification? Yeah.
I think if you look at the qualification, the contract's on display. You will have to go inside the house traditionally, or you have to pre-register to bid.
Okay.
So in South Australia, for example, you have to pre-register. So you may have 40 people out the front, of which you might have 16 registered bidders.
So if I've registered, what information will I have to give you? Will I have to show you proof of funding?
We need proof of funding. You need a lot of bits and pieces.
All that stuff.
ID is everything. You can't just say, my name is Simon Whale and here's my credit card.
That's why I didn't manage to buy the 3 houses I bid on.
I've got to tell you, it works for me with British Airways. I just go, my name is Simon Whale.
Certainly.
You're banned, sir. You're not getting on this plane.
That Wolf of Wall Street style incident. James, just look at James, on another one. Yes. There's huge efficiencies, obviously, when we're talking about, obviously, the end of the process. But I remember when I was back over with Hutch for his Bucks night just before, one of the other things...
You remember that?
Yeah, I do actually. I remember the amount in kittens, but that's a separate thing.
Some photographs, I'm not sure.
The thing that they were talking about was it's taken a pandemic to make their system as inefficient as ours. At that stage, it moved away from open houses to private viewings. I mean, that process, because open homes are the standard there, it's just so much more efficient, isn't it?
Look, I think society... And I won't use the exact phrase that a former colleague of mine used to say, but his words were, not my words, were, it usually takes a monumental fuck up to reassess what you need to do.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on it, but you can. It's not mine. I won't name who did it, but the point is that, it'll be right. What do you mean I can't do it that way anymore? I've got to do something different. A bit like, I came around the corner too quickly and I crashed the car into the tree. I won't drive that quickly around the corner next time.
Yeah.
It has taken that monumental element to change. Open inspections. So we would have 20, 30 groups come through an open inspection. The positives are you've got 20 people coming through one of your houses or properties or whatever it is. You've got 20 opportunities to grab 20 pieces of information to add to your database so you can market to your database in a perfect world. We know that doesn't always happen. You've got probably 20% of that open house number that's going to come through that have got a house to sell locally, so you want to be mining that. You've got that exposure that if your brand looks brilliant, your listings look brilliant, your presentation looks brilliant, that $15,000 fee is in the bank ready. Then you've got your next listings probably walking around that you want to be chatting to.
Yeah.
That's great. The problem is with it is that if you've got 20 people through, you can't give your undivided attention, make people feel special if you're not able to spend time with them.
Yeah.
Whereas the private inspections, there's kind of 2 or 3 steps with it. That the open houses also attract the people who are just getting a feel of the market, just getting a feel to test for what they like, what they want. Is this the price band? Is this the suburb? Before they're ready to go and have a look at it. Whereas the private inspections are very forced or very one-on-one. It's a bit like going shopping. You want to browse around you want to browse around the clothes shop. The moment someone jumps on you and said, hey, can I help you? You get that sort of, the guards goes up and you walk away.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to browse. And that open house is that browse element to you working out, is the house right? Is the suburb right? Are those things right for you? What this has done is it's gone, right, guys and girls, what do you need to do to replicate that open house, to replicate that, not tire kicker element, but that research side? So I've got offices going out there and doing 1-minute videos or 59-second videos because they can then pass them onto Instagram and drop them on their Instagram feeds because they can go and do a quick video. This is the house. Do you think it's something you want to have a look at? Come and do a private inspection. We'll take you around, adhering to the rules and regulations. I've got a couple of other offices doing really well on doing digital open inspections. So at 10 o'clock we'll be at this house, at 10:30 we'll be at that house. Join us on our Facebook page and we'll do a Facebook Live on this property. We'll show you wherever you want to have a look at in the house. And then after that event, that listing that is still on your Facebook page that you can go back to. So again, it's the efficiencies.
And was that, James, were they doing that before the lockdown?
No.
So okay. So that, I mean,
what you were getting beforehand is, here's the sexy, amazing video with a helicopter coming into land and the Sunseeker, and that launches the same day, goes live on REA and live on your page, and live on social media, and live on Instagram, and opens it tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's, how do you replicate the opens? Not necessarily in that 3-stage step, but maybe 4 or 5 steps.
I tell you what, David, that's fascinating because we were talking to both Ian Preston and SJ this week from Preston Baker, and they were talking, weren't they, about that launching concept again?
Yeah. So they have an interesting way of doing it whereby they will, I think it's a week to 10 days before they're ready to show the property. They'll get all the marketing done. They will have a sort of a pre-launch online. There's a nice sort of ticker that goes on the website that says, look, 7 days till this is going to be ready. And during that time, they're able to sort of market the hell out of it, get as many people booked in for that open inspection as possible. And then they're generating that interest, and they're hoping that they can leverage the element of competition, if you like, with the various different buyers that are coming to visit.
So the same principle applies to an auction, is you want to create hype until the event.
Yeah.
So Ian Haynes, who used to was Winkworth Newbury, used to take a photograph from the front step on Twitter saying, imagine leaving the house, this should be your view, and just taking a view down the garden path and launching it a week later. Right. You're creating that hype going, I'm not telling you anything about it, but it's the sort of thing you might like. And you have people going, is that the village? Is that?
Yeah.
Again, people always want to know something you're not prepared to tell them. It's a bit like the kids at Christmas Eve. They're trying to open the presents and guess.
Yeah.
It loses the effect on Christmas Day. So to create that hype is marketing 101.
So can I ask you a question? In terms of, those sexy videos, I am blown away by those because we don't have anything even close to that here. I suppose Fine and Country, I think Fine and Country probably do. I've seen their video stuff is quite professional. An average UK agent, independents, they're not using any of this sort of stuff. What does it cost you to get one of those fancy videos done? Well,
you've got offices that can do it posh, or you can just go to spend $100 on a gimbal that we do with some of our personal videos, and it's battery powered, it syncs to your iPhone, and it takes the judder out of it when you're walking around.
But talking about the Sunseeker and the helicopter scenario, where does that?
Well, if you're talking about the Sunseeker and the helicopter, you're talking about $300,000 just to fill a Sunseeker with fuel in the first place. So I'm not sure we're going to get that on the Manchester Ship Canal.
No, but my question to you is, who in Australia is investing that kind of money in marketing a property?
Typically, if you look at the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and if you haven't had a look, and you can go and have a look today, the REB awards were announced in the last 24 hours. So worth having a look at that. So REB business, it's a bit like the property industry eye, but the Aussie thing.
Isn't the top
100? Yes. So top 100 came out today. To give you an idea, the top 100 agents sold $12.9 billion worth of property last year.
Wow.
So that's just the top 100.
Right.
We've got the guy, Rick Serrao, that's Rain and Horn Double Bay, finished number 3. Rick Serrao, I've got my numbers. Rick Serrao sold 116 houses last year, and he sold $293 million worth of property.
Well, just as a matter of interest, was Alexander Phillips still first, or was Tostovan?
4th year in a row. No, Tostovan was down to 4th or 5th.
Oh, wow. Okay. Who's in at number 2 then?
I can't remember because I didn't write that down.
Okay, so we're talking...
What we're getting at is that when you start selling at $1 million to $2 million to $3 million, that 1% on top of the house price, would you be prepared to be investing that to get 12.7 million or 12.8 million on the sale? You're going to drop $20,000, $30,000 on the video.
Yeah.
A lot of the prime top agents work with videographers on a rolling basis. That if they're doing 116 sales a year, I mean, give you an idea, Rick listed 180 properties last year.
Yeah.
So that's 180 campaigns. Not all would have been videos, not all would have been top end, but all professional photography. So everything is about marketing it to the best of its ability.
Isn't it, James? It's important to know that, look, the problem, the trap that a lot of Brits fall into, and quite rightly because they get an exposure, is that everything over there is like that. And, so we got like Matty Hayson on, who's, these great boutique agents that have the property stock that do it. But there's companies like Campaign Track that will help you. I suppose they're like a more multifaceted version of Ravensworth in the sort of marketing collateral they do. But it is that element that over here, if you do some glossy brochures, you might charge that back if you're a Savills. But over there, everything's a line item. I mean, even to the degree, and I know this for fact, that our old stuff used to be charged back to some vendors as a CRM database service.
Well, could I ask taking what Simon's just said and maybe framing it in a different way and talking about something else that's happened recently. The UK, whether you like it or not, gave birth to the Purple Bricks model.
Yes.
And I think the reason for that is the way that UK estate agents have been perceived by the marketplace and by vendors over the years is that we are not particularly great value for money. And that it perhaps can be done cheaper, and at the end of the day what we offer them is we're a means to an end, but we're not an essential service to them. And
yes.
It was a bit of a wake-up call, and what you found was when Purple Bricks came to the marketplace, the other agents, yes, we spent a year or two belly aching about this is where our market's gone. But then we all woke up and realised that we had to raise the standard of the service that we were providing.
Nothing wrong with having anybody come to market to raise the standard.
No.
Whether that be...
And I think competition...
Tech and license and what have you like that. I think competition's healthy. I won't name the office that I've got in South Australia that's specific to this, but I've got one great sales agent. He does enough to make sure that he's always in that realm.
Yeah.
3 years ago, a guy totally not real estate related, typically not your high net worth individual that would have stepped into the real estate factory, stepped in alongside him. As a result, he raised his game because he knew this guy was coming and catching him. So you got this healthy competition. So all of a sudden, his numbers have gone through the roof because the other guy's pushed. It's a bit like this sort of James Nicky Lauder story that, takes one to push the other.
Yeah.
New things that are coming on board, new high quality tech, new ways to do videos, appraisals through FaceTime, do virtual tours. This is going to be the norm. Tech's not the scary beast that it used to be. If you go back 20, 30 years when the Right Move started and the Evening Standard Property Supplement or, where I grew up in Doncaster, the Doncaster Free Press used to be a really thick thing. You used to circle what you wanted to see on a Saturday. The last time I was in there in 2016, it's more like a pamphlet nowadays. You know, technology and progress is coming. This pandemic's just meant that what was coming over 5 years has come over 3 weeks. Yeah. Anything that's going to come that we don't know about in the next few weeks, whether it be the better way to photograph properties, you know, Matterport now as opposed to a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got floor plans. We don't need any more than floor plans. I've got a beautiful photograph that I stick on the front of the details, and I've got a floor plan on the back. That's all you could possibly need. Is it?
Maybe not. Yeah. Well, that's correct. So there will be some innovations out of this, but Purple Bricks famously didn't take in Australia at all. Yeah. And a lot
to say thanks for that, wouldn't they? For turning them back.
Well, a lot of us would take the view that really Purple Bricks, it thrives in a market where vendors don't have a particularly great opinion of estate agents and where they think that they're overpaid. In Australia and the States, it would seem that the fee that you pay your realtor or your estate agent to sell your property is one of the best investments you can make, and that's the mindset. Is that what killed off Purple Bricks, or is it what you guys were doing that killed off Purple Bricks?
I think there's a multitude of things that you do, and without saying that's the one thing that killed them off. I mean, you don't come into the market and say everyone else is crap, we're the brilliant ones. Because if you've got the top 100 agents selling $12.9 billion worth of property on their own, they must be doing something right and something well. Yeah. And you know what? If I pay you 20 grand and you get me an extra 300 on the top of a sale of a big house, or if I pay you an extra 2 grand marketing and you get me 5 grand above on street record, that's an investment. That's a return. The cheapest agent is not the cheapest fee. It's the one that leaves you with the most money at the end of it. So again, the fees, the debates with fees, I know that fees are always going to be under pressure. I know that the race to the bottom is not a race you want to win. And it's always going to be the cheapest is not necessarily a USP. That's proven in the sense that you can go out and you can buy a Vauxhall Astra, or you can go out and buy an Audi A3. They do the similar thing, but they don't. People will pay more to get more. And I think the element of professionalism that you've got with a licensed real estate agent, those quality products, those quality services that you deliver, look, it's a very competitive world that the barrier to entry is high. You've got to spend money to become a real estate agent. You can't just walk in off the street and say, I used to drive trucks for Tesco's yesterday, I'm going to start today. There's no way of doing that. So the investment that you've done in personal development to get to that stage means that you've got to keep that bar high.
And public opinion of your worth in terms of the worth of your industry and the value that you guys bring to the table is there, isn't it?
We're a very property hungry country. It's mum and dad investors are huge. They'll turn up to real estate agents. And again, if you've got that auctioneer performing on a Saturday, they're like an entertainer. But the other side of things that you see here, as opposed to the UK, is it's about the agent of the brand, not just about the agency. So Simon, you'll have seen a lot of this here in as opposed to the UK. Big faces on boards, big signboards with mugshots. It's David of this business is the dominating agent in the area.
But the flip side to that is that if David has a wild night out on Saturday night, it gets reported on social media, and as a result, the firm is affected by that. Here in the UK,
you've always got that risk. And look, quite frankly, in the UK, in small communities, in small, deepest Hampshire or deepest Sussex, what have you like that, and you've got the agent that gets a little bit drunk at the golf club on Saturday night and drives home, that reputation is intertwined. That's no different. But I think one of the things is that the faces in front of the brand here are supposed to be behind the brand. The brand is a very strong, established, strong coupling with the agent. It's not just purely about the agent, because the tools, the tech, the reputation, the backup, that goes with it. But it's very much that you're instructing an agent to list your property.
The problem is, James, though, isn't it? Sometimes it's a happy marriage most of the time, but sometimes that individual personal brand can start to outshine the company brand, or start doing things very differently to other agents within the brand. And what that leads to is a lack of consistency of service, and that can be a challenge, can't it?
It's the same in the sports world. If you look at, a player does not make a team. Yeah. You go back to, well, your hometown, Manchester, the Alex Ferguson era, when the player got too big, he was out, he was gone, because that dynamic of the business always happened. And sport and business are very intertwined on that side of things. So that element of cohesive, strong team culture is integral to all of the team pulling together as an office, doing 200-300 million sales a year.
So let's ask you a question. In the UK, because I think I'm just conscious of time, and I know that we're coming to the end now. So in the UK, there is this push now to move towards personal branding and personal marketing. So if you could give agents in the UK one tip, having known the kind of the UK market and the Australian market, what do you think we could be doing here in the UK that is easy to implement, that will give us a bit of an edge?
I think the question is, what are you doing that differentiates yourself from everybody else, A, in the office that you are, and B, in your area? If you're doing the same, it's all about fees. Yeah. You've got no argument about getting 1.4, 1.3, 1.2.
The absence of differentiation, price is the only thing you can negotiate on, isn't
Absolutely. It? So if your unique sales proposition is that you're the best agent because you charge 1.1%, you're just the same. Yeah. If you're not adding anything, and to add that thing, you need to be able to demonstrate market share. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can grab a bigger audience than the next person. And if that is that you need to go down the social media route, you need to go down the sponsorship route, you need to go down the opening fates and sponsoring the local schools, that's what you need to do in your respective area. But what you can't do is sit there and just I do the same as all of the 6 agents in the area. That's enough for me. 150 grand a year banking, I'll have that. Thanks very much. We've got guys here that are taking home $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year for doing exactly the same role as in the UK. We've
also got James, you'll know them, Louis Desmignac, who went from Romans over there.
Yeah, I know Louis well.
He's up at Coronas, and we're interviewing him, and actually he had that same, just like your good self, saw the amount of work that he was doing, obviously back there in high pressure thing, and obviously he's up there now on the Gold Coast living it up.
Yeah, you can sit there to Louis and go, do you want to be in Bunch or do you want to be in Pelican Waters? I know you look at his Facebook page and you go, well, yeah, see why you made the move.
So also, James, you've been very loyal to your newfound traitorous country. What if anything do you think the Aussies don't do as well as us?
I think one of the big things, and I touched on it with open for inspections, is, David, every one of your negs or any one of the would have a buyer box. And every single buyer, you've got name, address, telephone number, and you're talking and you're working your buyers. I think one of the big noticeable differences here, it's all about the listings. If you've got the listings, the buyers will come. The buyer management element is kind of a secondary thought, whereas in the UK, it's the first thought.
I'll tell you what totally resonates there, James. That's absolutely. We looked at the data when we were converting from a lot of different systems at Repeat when I was there, and the buyer data was sporadic, sparse, non-existent, to say the least. One of the challenges, of course, when you've got that many people, just you think of it on an operational level at open houses, trying to track as much information as possible as they go in, sometimes doesn't happen, and it can lead to you just having, the surname on the database, which isn't helpful at all.
At the end of the day, everybody is a seller at some point. Yeah. So if you've got 50 buyers coming through your open inspections today, if you're playing the medium game or the long game, that's your listing in 2025. Yeah. If you've got them on the system, you've got them in the right category, you're emailing them in your newsletter, when we use Spotlight to email through, you can target them, you can get to them, you can talk to them, whether you be talking about the sports clubs, you'd be talking about the listings, or you just be talking over here, we do a newsletter in the summertime, talking about fire danger and so forth like that.
Do you ever talk about cricket?
I do talk about the cricket regularly, although recently I've kind of ignored it. But I was doing a bit of stats, and to be honest, it is actually 4-2 to England over the last 7 Ashes series.
Oh, well, there you go.
So
I can find a win in this.
that sounds like a really good time, James. Thank you very much, by the way. I know you're homesick, so I'm going to just, I've done a little present for you. Okay?
Oh.
Oh dear.
Hopefully you'll remember Tony Hart of Take Heart fame. So you might start welling up at this, but here's some memories for you.
I've got Yorkshire tea. That's a selfie of you.
Look at that. All of that beautiful Britishness.
He's still got the Queen.
And,
I'm not sure about this one, though.
We even do serial killers better. So, James, honestly, I want to say thank you for spending so long. I genuinely think I don't think I've heard it put so succinctly, the differences between it. And obviously we can only really do that with someone who's lived and breathed both of the different markets and models. So, look, I don't know when we're going to be able to get back over there, but I owe you a drink, and we'd love to have you on again in the future, if you're all right with that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'll have you. I was due to be back in 6 weeks' time to meet my nephews that I've never met, but I'm grounded in South Australia. So
it'll all come back to normal eventually. You can be sure of that.
So I'll just have to celebrate with a few cold beers and a barbecue.
Wow, sounds painful, that.
and remember, you've got to prepare the room for David for when he's travelling over to live there.
Well, I'll send you the link, David, to get your licence, and then you can just buy a one-way ticket.
Finder's fee for Kerfuffle. Cheers,
I'm on it. Thank you.